Just days after Japan's prime minister warned of an existential threat over Taiwan, 3 Chinese warships, including the powerful Type 055 destroyer, slipped past Japan's home islands, tracked every mile by Japanese forces. China called it routine. Tokyo saw a message of steel at its doorstep. What triggered this, and why did it escalate so fast? On November 7th, 2025, in a packed session of the Japanese Diet, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi delivered a statement that would ripple far beyond Tokyo. Facing pointed questions from opposition lawmakers, she set aside the usual diplomatic hedging. In clear terms, she declared that if warships are used and armed forces involved, it could undoubtedly become a survival-threatening situation. Her words, recorded in the official transcript and cited across Japan's major broadsheets, left no doubt about the government's position. For decades, Japanese leaders had skirted direct commitments on whether a crisis over Taiwan would trigger collective self-defense. Takaichi's answer broke with that tradition. She explained that any judgment would still require a comprehensive assessment of facts and circumstances. Yet she made it plain that a Chinese blockade or attack involving warships would cross the constitutional threshold for action. The phrase survival-threatening situation is not just political rhetoric, it is the legal key that unlocks Japan's right to use force alongside allies under the 2015 security laws. Domestic analysts immediately recognized the shift. Some praised her clarity, arguing that ambiguity only invited miscalculation. Others worried that this level of candor risked inflaming tensions and narrowing Japan's diplomatic options. Still, the core message was unmistakable. Japan now publicly linked its own security to the fate of Taiwan in a way that no previous prime minister had done. The statement drew intense coverage in domestic press and set the stage for a sharp reaction from Beijing. In Tokyo, the debate was no longer about if, but how Japan would respond to a crisis in the Taiwan Strait. China's official response arrived with little delay. Within hours of Prime Minister Takaichi's statement, the Chinese Foreign Ministry summoned Japan's ambassador in Beijing. The vice minister delivered a formal protest, calling the remarks on Taiwan a grave provocation and warning that interference would only bring what he described as a crushing defeat for any challenger. The phrase, delivered in measured tones at a televised press briefing, was quickly echoed across Chinese state media. Editorials accused Tokyo of reviving old hostilities and warned that Japan was risking not only its own security, but the stability of the entire region. In Shanghai, the Chinese Ministry of Defense spokesperson, Colonel Jiang Bin, sharpened the message further. Standing before a wall of national flags, he declared that the People's Liberation Army was fully prepared to defend what he called China's core interests. Any attempt by Japan to intervene in the Taiwan issue will be met with firm countermeasures, he said, adding that the People's Liberation Army possessed the strength and the will to ensure the outcome. On social media, the rhetoric ran hotter still. Shui Jian, China's consul general in Osaka, posted a warning on Weibo that Japan should not stretch that filthy neck into a place it does not belong. The post was deleted within hours, but not before it was screenshotted and circulated widely by Japanese and international observers. Behind the official statements and viral posts, Chinese officials began hinting that a demonstration of resolve at sea would follow. The Ministry of Defense announced that People's Liberation Army Navy units would conduct routine operations in international waters. The message was clear. China intended to show, not just tell, how it would respond to what it saw as a challenge to its red lines. At 5:20 a.m. on the morning of November 14, a P-1 Maritime Patrol aircraft from the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force picked up 3 radar signatures northeast of Amami Oshima, a critical detection. The crew, trained for precisely this kind of early warning, quickly identified the formation, a Type 055 destroyer at the lead, followed by a Type 054A frigate and a Type 903 replenishment ship. The aircraft's sensors logged course, speed, and bearing, heading east at 14 knots. Line ahead, formation tight. Within minutes, the first high-resolution photographs were taken, each image time-stamped and later matched to precise coordinates. By 5:44, the destroyer J.S. Fuyuzuki had detached from training near the Satsunan Islands and was already trailing the Chinese column at a distance of 7.6 nautical miles. The deck log from Fuyuzuki recorded the moment, bearing 185 degrees, true, all systems on watch. No attempt was made to hail the Chinese ships on the open bridge-to-bridge channel. Radio logs captured only the routine navigation warnings broadcast in Mandarin and English. As the formation approached the Osumi Strait, the Japanese operators on both ship and aircraft maintained a constant stream of sensor data. The automatic identification system known as AIS had gone dark for all warships in the area, a common practice during military transits. Commercial traffic adjusted course, diverting north to avoid the restricted lane. The P-1 circled overhead, relaying updates to the Maritime Operations Center in Tokyo. Every movement, every change in speed or heading was logged and corroborated by multiple sensors. The shadowing would continue for hours, building a layered record of the transit in real time. At 6:29 a.m. on November 14, 2025, a SkySat commercial satellite captured a high-resolution image over the Osumi Strait. The photograph, later analyzed by independent defense outlets, showed the Type 055 destroyer Anshan leading the Chinese formation, flanked by a Type 054A frigate and a Type 903 replenishment ship. Ship wakes, sun angles, and geolocation data matched the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force's own records. The satellite timestamp aligned with the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force's public release, which placed the Chinese column at the midpoint of the strait, moving east at 15 knots. On the water, the radio bridge log from the Japanese destroyer Fuyuzuki recorded a routine exchange as the ships converged. At 7:08 a.m., the Japanese destroyer hailed the lead Chinese vessel on the international channel. "This is Japanese naval vessel. You are transiting international strait. Please report intentions." The reply, delivered in measured English, came seconds later. "This is Chinese warship, conducting legal transit passage, no intention to interfere with others." Both sides followed the established protocol for international straits, with no deviation from the planned route and no escalation in tone. By mid-morning, the Ministry of Defense in Tokyo released a composite map and annotated photographs. Each image carried a digital watermark and a precise timestamp. The Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force spokesperson, in a brief statement to reporters, explained the rationale for such transparency. The column of Chinese vessels did not deviate or engage in threatening maneuvers. The Self-Defense Force closely monitored and recorded the event and has released this information to ensure public understanding and regional stability. Independent satellite analysts and naval experts confirmed that the evidence was consistent across all sources. The public release turned a routine military transit into a documented event, leaving little room for dispute about the facts on the water. The composition of the Chinese naval group moving through the Osumi Strait was anything but random. At its core sailed the Type 055 destroyer Anshan, a vessel that stands among the most advanced surface combatants afloat today. Displacing over 12,000 tons and equipped with a 4-panel active electronically scanned array radar, the Anshan can track targets hundreds of kilometers away and direct long-range missiles against air, sea, or land threats. Its 112 vertical launch cells allow for a mix of anti-air, anti-ship, and land attack missiles, giving the task group a formidable shield and spear in one hull. Trailing the flagship, the Type 054A frigate provides anti-submarine and secondary air defense coverage, while the Type 903 replenishment ship signals endurance. This is a group designed to operate far from home ports, with the logistical backbone to stay at sea for extended periods. The layered mix of sensors, weapons, and supply support transforms a simple transit into a demonstration of sustained, networked combat power, raising the stakes for any observer tracking their passage. Under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, foreign warships are permitted to transit international straits like the Osumi Strait, provided their passage is continuous, expeditious, and non-threatening. Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force exercises its own rights by monitoring, documenting, and releasing public records of these movements, as long as there is no interference. Maritime law scholars point out that this legal framework governs not only the Osumi Strait, but also similar passages such as the Miyako and Tsushima Straits. In recent years, Japanese defense data shows a clear rise in Chinese naval transits. By November 2025, more than 24 major People's Liberation Army Navy ship movements through these straits had been publicly documented, reflecting a steady uptick since 2018. These numbers are not just isolated incidents. They are part of a broader pattern that regional analysts now call a tightening ring of steel around Japan's home islands. Today, Chinese warship transits near Japan are no longer rare, they are routine. Each passage tests not just borders, but resolve. As maritime patrols tighten and rhetoric sharpens, the waters south of Kyushu become a front line for Asia's future. The question now, who will blink first?